Save a Stub.
Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Save a Stub podcast. I am joined as ever by Will Foster. How are you doing, Will?
I'm good, thanks, Rory. How are you?
I'm great. And I'm also joined by our critic extraordinaire, Harry Osborne. How are you, Harry?
It should really be in alphabetical order.
Well, I'm afraid I've done it the way I've done it, and you're going to have to get over that. So we started the week with International Women's Day, and we will be continuing in that vein by watching a film called I Care A Lot. It is packed with strong female characters, so look forward to our thoughts on that. We'll also be looking at the Oscar nominations that came out, as well as questioning how exactly a Save the Sub film would come about with us three on the books. Should we get into it, guys?
Yes,
Let's go.
Let's do that.
Okay, let's get started with the news then, and we head over to Harry Osborne. Give it to us, Harry.
Avatar's been re-released because I guess people in China were angry that The Avengers was the highest grossing film of all time. So they've re-released that so that they could all go to the cinema to make Avatar the highest grossing. Which now means that people who like The Avengers are petitioning to get that back into the cinema so that can be the highest grossing film ever. Which then means that the people in China are going to do the same thing again with Avatar. And I imagine they'll both just go on forever until, I guess, one country gets bored or a third film that is better than the other two grosses more money.
Does just sound like a vicious cycle. Did you enjoy Avatar when it first came out, Harry?
Yeah, I think I did. I think I really liked it. And then I saw it on like my TV at home. And I thought, wow, this is actually just a bit shit, isn't it? This is just... It's blue aliens with spears, you know.
Put into like an action film format, yeah.
There's not actually that much to it. Whereas, at least with Endgame, I sort of was like, you know, culmination of however many years of shit films. Whereas Avatar was just... And I can't believe there's 4 more coming out soon. Wow, I'm excited for those.
4 more Avatars?
They've wrote... When the first one came out, I remember reading back then, because I was a neek even when the first Avatar came out, that they were making... They had already written the scripts for 2 more, and that they were planning another 4. But James Cameron, the guy who makes Avatar, was angry that like 3D rendering wasn't good enough or something like that. So it's been... I mean, when did the first Avatar come out? Wasn't that like 2013?
I think it was earlier, 2009.
Yeah, I want to say 2008.
That's like, that is, you know... I was in the single digits back then. No,
Decades.
But like, I don't know what. Who's actually waiting? Oh God, I can't wait for Avatar 2 to come out. That's gonna blow my nuts off.
Who's watching it being re-released? So when you say re-released, that means it's...
So it was never originally released
No.
in China.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so people in China are now going to see a film that came out. Like,
It wasn't released in China.
Yeah, that's
So
the whole point.
they've never seen it.
Exactly.
Oh
That's
my-
why
Oh,
everyone's.
just
why
thought-
everyone's going to see it.
I just thought they were like, oh, we prefer Avatar to Endgame. I'd rather that was number 1 because that's what the people were saying on like every Instagram I read. Oh, that makes way more sense.
I can't remember why it got blocked specifically in China. I think it had something to do with the kind of tones of Americans going to another country and like mining and stuff. They didn't really like it. Not Country Planet. But no, yeah. Now they've allowed it to be released and it's kicked off.
are they enjoying it? Are the numbers good? Do we know if it's...
It's enough to push it back up to highest grossing. So yeah.
Gee.
Yeah, it wasn't far off, wasn't it? Wasn't it only like a 8 million or something? It was actually really tight. But you know what Disney are like? They're awful people, so they'll repost Endgame at some point, and everyone will go, "I love Endgame," and watch it again.
But will that work though? Because this new revelation of it never being released in China, do you think people would actually go back to the cinema to watch Endgame?
Oh, 100%. Honestly, the people who like Marvel are absolute awful people. The sort of people who clap in cinemas, do you know what I mean?
Do you know, I went to see Endgame actually in Liverpool city centre, and it came out at like 11 p.m. and I really vividly remember this girl that was like 15 crying uncontrollably like at the end of the film, and having
Don't
never
cry 'cause it's over.
having never like seen a lot of the Marvel films. I've seen a few. I saw the last 2, Infinity War as well, but like I don't get how you can be that involved.
You will be soon, Will.
Yeah, mate,
after a couple months of this podcast, you'll be in the cinema. Like you'll be the last one to leave the cinema.
It's like you got to wait if there's like any additional footage that they sneak in at the
Yeah, and then you see the added on scene, and then you're like, everyone else starts leaving. You're like, no, wait for the second added on scene.
That's right. I'm a real pro now.
But then it gets to the point where you think there's going to be an additional scene in the film that isn't, and you actually just end up watching the entire credit sequence for a film that there's nothing else to, and you look like a moron. So,
I've done that. I've done that before as well. To be fair.
Yeah, it doesn't shock me, to be honest.
So you mock someone for crying, but you're one of those people.
Yeah, isn't it?
What else is going on in the news, Harry?
Yeah, I mean, the Oscars got nominated. I imagine we'll do a mini episode for the Oscars and maybe even the BAFTAs. I don't really know if people care about the BAFTAs. They were all... People said that the BAFTAs were essentially filling the space that the Golden Globes failed to, with sort of, heavy ignorance of minorities and stuff because of their issues with their Hollywood foreign press and their panel diversity and things. So the BAFTAs did loads of nominations for films that otherwise I hadn't really heard of, with one notable exclusion being Carey Mulligan, who a lot of people have said has got a good chance of winning an Oscar this year, let alone, getting nominated for a BAFTA. And people kicked off about Tenet, but, I mean, Tenet was a bit crap, so, chill out, grow up, get a life.
We've learnt not to ask you about Tenet on this.
Yeah. To be fair, a weird one was Judas and the Black Messiah. They nominated the main actor and the best the supporting actor. So Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield, who we've discussed before. They nominate them both for best supporting, which is odd because one of them's not the supporting actor.
Do you not normally get that? Oh, that's why it's odd.
Yeah, but it's and it's also a bit peak. Like, how often do you get two people from the same film nominated for the same award? I feel like it's very infrequent.
Yeah.
Because the award is almost given to the film itself as well as the actor for those sort of things. So that's a bit confusing. I don't know what they're going to do with that. I'm trying to think if anything else interesting really happened with the Oscar nominations. I don't know. It's just a bit of a down year for awards. I feel like you can't be that excited about them if there's been very few films come out. And people were saying it was funny because the BAFTAs, of the 6 films that were nominated for the British Film and Television Awards, only one of them is viewable in the UK. So
Really?
even if you wanted to make your mind up, you can't, because you can only go and see the trial of Chicago 7 if you pay for Netflix, which is cool. Oh, the other funny thing was Glenn Close, who has been nominated for Oscars before, I think she might have even won a few, has become the first person ever to be nominated for an Oscar and a Razzie for the same performance. So the best and worst performance of the year as a best supporting actress. Which is kind of nuts. I don't know how it can be great and also awful, but she's walking that fine line of talent, I suppose. So fair play to her.
There's a big...
In terms of...
Sorry, I keep interrupting you, but...
There's, and then, I don't know...
Shaun the Sheep's got a nomination.
Bro, you said you weren't going to interrupt me, and as soon as I started speaking, you started speaking again. Like, I don't care if Shaun the Sheep's got a nomination.
That's just mental to me. That needs to be heard.
What for, though?
It has got nominated for Best Animated Feature Film. So it's in...
How vexed you'd be if you made Soul and you literally spent your life animating that film and this fucking sheep won.
There's a new Shaun the Sheep film?
Yeah, Shaun the Sheep movie. A Shaun the Sheep movie.
Flew under my radar.
Farmageddon.
I feel like, low-key, Shaun the Sheep's been making moves. Like, I don't watch it. It's not one of my favourite shows. But I reckon they've been doing alright, It's Wallace and Gromit's dead, isn't it? You've got to move on. And Shaun is the way.
Feels like it got longevity. Which I like. Pinocchio has also got a nomination.
Didn't even know they made one.
No.
No.
Yeah,
Mulan got one as well, and everyone was like, fuck Mulan. I sort of agree with that as well. And then other bits of news. The Game of Thrones, HBO announced another 3 spin-offs. And everyone went, these are great, but can you actually just finish the series that you made first? Yeah, no, I don't know what to say to be honest. I mean, yeah, 3 spin-offs. It's all like prequel stuff. I don't know if George R.R. Martin's involved. I don't think I really care.
Surely
I loved Game of Thrones. Do you know what I mean?
They've lost it though, haven't they? Like the ending was just so disappointing that surely it's just people have given up.
I feel like they have alienated people, but obviously the source material, his books, are actually supposed to be really good, and they're sort of just going to flesh those out. But past the point, if you're going to have to, lower the amount of money you put into each series, and they're not going to have all the necessarily big names and all the rest, and you're going to split your, quality between three. Are you really going to get three worthwhile watching shows? I'm not convinced. But we'll wait and see. HBO smash out TV. They're so good at it.
I think that's the thing. I think they're definitely they're riding that high of everyone knows that HBO is putting out quality stuff.
Yeah.
So they're like, you guys want some more? We'll give you 3 more of the same thing.
And weirdly, Game of Thrones benefits from it. You can have crap actors and it still works because you're supposed to overact for these sort of films. Do you know what I mean? It's something about when you do mythical creatures, you can just throw quality acting out the window. It's all right if you've got 1 or 2. Peter Dinklage was obviously really good. Lena Headey was really good. Nikolai Coster-Waldau was good. But then you have, oh god, like Emilia Clarke and Sophie Turner and Maisie Williams, and Kit Harington. I mean, to be honest, everyone who is a Stark member was an awful actor, apart from Sean Bean, and he gets his head cut off. So my initial feeling, sack, is what I'm saying to the Game of Thrones spin-offs. And that's all the news for this week.
So we've got a few really good questions this week from Ed Cook. So I'm going to start with a couple from him. The first one was regarding, does your viewing experience affect how you feel about a film? So in other words, if you watched a feature film in IMAX as opposed to in your bedroom on your laptop, do you think that changes your experience or how much you enjoy a film?
I think it's a good question. I think kind of on the topic we talked about in the news with Avatar, watching that in the cinema kind of as something new, as like a massive step forward in visual effects, it was stunning. And then you go back home and you watch it on a kind of much smaller screen and you're like, this is just an action film that's, kind of cool. So I think it definitely can change things. And I think that's kind of why I don't agree with people who are like, oh yeah, the cinema's like dead, like it's not going to go anywhere. Because I think you still can get such a big experience out of that. And I think it's kind of underappreciated, and it's a bit like going to football games. When you go to a football game in person, you're like, whoa, why have I been watching it on TV all this time? Like going to the cinema, you're like, you've got your snacks, you've got your popcorn, your Tango Ice Blast. You're ready.
It's an irreplaceable experience. Like, it is different. Like you say, I think literally if you watch a film, you are just seeing it on a screen. But like when that THX like graphic comes on before a film and you hear those speakers rumble inside your soul, like.
When was the last time you saw a THX logo? Honestly, I don't think there's been one since the noughties.
No, what are the big ones that have all like? You know what I mean?
Like Universal.
You see the screen get wider, and you get that little bit where it's like turn off your phones and it says the like age rating.
I think
I have noticed the past few times I've been to the cinema, they've like forgotten to turn the lights off. It bugs me.
That's appalling.
The lights off.
Yeah, they dim them like halfway, and then it just like, it seems like it's way too bright in the room. But then I went to independent places like the Everyman, and that was also a great experience.
I think it's almost the reverse. It's not about you necessarily going to a cinema to see it. It's about not seeing it in the worst possible way. Like, I've never seen a movie, on a plane that I've enjoyed. Because you're watching it on a screen, it's the size of your hand, whilst a fat lady next to you sort of sleeps on you, or a baby's crying, or, something or other's happening. And you physically cannot enjoy even a good film like that.
Harry, have you watched The Hateful Eight since you watched it on your phone in the back of my car?
Yeah, so, okay, that's a great example. So, Rory drove us up to Yorkshire years ago, and it's about a 5-hour trip, so I'm not going to name drop him, but a friend and I watched The Hateful Eight on a phone, and we thought it was awful, but I've heard people say it was really good. So I waited about 2 years, and I watched it again on my TV at home, and it was still shit.
You weren't expecting that. I certainly wasn't.
Now, I wonder if some of the impact's lost, obviously, because I watched it on a phone, and I think we went to McDonald's halfway, so we had to have a break. But I still think that's a bad film. But I don't think watching it on a phone helped me out at all. It's even things like sound, isn't it? Like surround sound makes a difference.
Massively, yeah.
Or I'm already going to say it, but Zack Snyder's new film is filmed in a 4:3 ratio, and it's really irritating that it's square. It's little things like that. You just,
Wait, the whole of that? Oh.
That 4-hour film's a square.
I'm not sure I'm ready for that.
I do think it influences, but I also think if you really like a film, if you're genuinely excited for a film, you're going to put in the effort to at least watch it in a scenario that you think might be conducive to like good watching. That's my summary.
Nice. Okay. Then the other question we're going to answer from Ed this week was regarding a nomination. So we hinted on the Oscar nominations earlier. What are our opinions on Hamilton being nominated? Sorry. What are our opinions on Hamilton being nominated for the Film Awards when technically it's not really a film, it's just a recording of a play?
Man, I think the Zoom call must be lagging because you just said the same thing 3 times. Like, something must have happened. I actually think that's a really good point because by that same logic, you can put you can put Cats. You can
Not
nominate
the film.
Cats.
Not
saying anyone should nominate
film.
Cats. No,
Well, the film's not a recording of.
No. Oh my god. Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats, Rory. I'm not saying, James Corden's Cat arsehole, that rubbish that they put out last year. Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats. If you could fit, or there's like a Lion King, isn't there, on Broadway?
Yeah.
Or
Warhorse.
I'm trying to think of something that's unique. No, because that was the film as well. I need to think of something. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. People go mental for that because Harry Potter fans are idiots.
It's because Harry Potter fans are.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Stands.
So if you filmed that and whacked that on Disney Plus or whoever's got the rights, it's Warner Brothers, isn't it? Harry Potter. If you whack that on their streaming service, does that make that a film? No. And I do agree. Sorry, I don't agree. I'm making an opinion with myself. I do think you shouldn't be allowed to nominate things like that for film awards.
I think the Tonys exist for a reason, right? There are awards for stage productions, and to be honest, I feel like part of the argument might be the Tonys don't get enough recognition and people don't take stage stuff as seriously, and they should, because you get such good things like Hamilton. But it should be the opposite. It should be we should pay more attention to the Tonys rather than being forced to ham-fist these stage productions into film awards.
Plus, that's something that comes from context, like the question we just had before. If you go to the theatre and see Hamilton, I guarantee it is a better experience than you watching it at home on your TV. Because it just will be, won't it? If you see people perform live and you actually see the movement and stuff, whereas being allowed to pause it, or you're watching a very fixed location shot. I'm not saying you're moving around the theatre when you're watching Hamilton, but I think it's completely different. It's not an experience. Theatre is an experience, I would say. I mean, I've only been to see West Side Story and I hated that, and I got kicked out for eating jelly beans too loudly and just shaking them because I was bored. I went with my mum. And I don't know why.
/ things that didn't happen.
Yeah, no, I'm telling the truth. I was so bored. My mum said, "You can't be in here for that. You should gotta go out." I would rather have been sitting in the corridor shaking jelly beans than I would.
Oh, so your mum kicked you out.
Story.
You didn't get kicked
out. I was 9 years old. Starving was in the car and leave.
When your mum does it.
That was a seriously embellished story.
When your mum does it at that age, it's as good as getting kicked out. Really, come on, give him that.
And I was glad.
So you're not a fan of theatre,
Well, I don't know. I went to see West Side Story when I was 9. Well, I mean, I just don't think it was particularly picked well, that performance from me.
I think it's interesting. I've been to see a few things. I think I've said before. I've seen Hamilton live in London, which was amazing.
Didn't that cost you $4,000?
Yeah, it was my sister's 18th birthday present. So it was. You know what pissed me off about that as well? A couple of rows in.
That she was there.
Because actually, unfortunately, she was unavailable, so I had to take someone else. But that's a different story.
No, that is not true.
It is true. Something came up.
That's fucking.
We got the tickets at a year in advance, and a few months before, she was like, "Oh, sorry, I've got something coming up now, so can't do that." No, but also, so those tickets were expensive. They were almost £100 each. But it's in London, you get so many people that they just shit money out their arse. They don't care. So we had people.
I mean, where else would you shit it from?
Yeah, sorry. Is that a phrase? I've never heard that.
They've got so much money that they can afford basically not to care about spending £100 each on tickets. So there were people talking throughout the whole thing in front of us. They were they'd had a few drinks as well, so that was a bit annoying. But no, I think you need to go, Harry. I feel get the right experience and you would really enjoy it.
All right, I'll go. Cheers.
Do we want to do another question?
Let's do one more question.
Sure. So, final question we're going to do this week. If we had to make a film between us right now, who would we choose to direct it? Who would we choose to star in it? And who would write the script?
Right, well, you're starring in it because you don't know what
No,
the hell's going on.
I think it's very clear that my acting skills over the last few weeks have not been great. So, maybe.
No. What
No,
we just said,
they
we want you
have
to
been
act.
great.
That's the opposite of what we wanted you to say.
I disagree.
I don't know. I mean, you've rocked up wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Your hair's a state. You look like an actor.
Where do you see yourself fitting in then, Will? If you think your acting's been down, are you more of a
hang on a
writer
second.
or
Sorry, I thought we were picking people in the industry to do this.
No.
Oh my god!
no.
Can you not read?
That's why I was so confused. Like, I can't take
That's why I couldn't work out why you were being such a wetter about it. Like, it's not a
out of
hard
every
question,
actor
just-
in the world, you've decided to pick me because of the podcast.
Sake.
All right, yeah, no,
Like I like you, mate, but I don't think you're better than Ryan Gosling.
I was
Like,
gonna say, okay, yeah, no, I'll take that then. No, yeah, 100%, I'd act in it. Why not?
Okay. I see Harry wanting to be the director, just partly for that kind of that title, but also because I think you probably know what you're doing the most of the three of us.
Oh, I don't think I know what I'm
Do you
doing.
know your way
at all. I think I'd
Around
just
the
be.
camera. Don't like that.
No.
I mean,
But then
I'm
I
not
suppose.
sure the directors are.
Yeah, I'd probably just hire a cameraman, wouldn't I? I don't know. I feel like I'd be a bit like anal.
Do you think
I'd probably
you'd be a
I'd probably
better-
be anal about people having their fucking email things going off. I think that's what I'd be anal about.
Do you think you'd be better as a scriptwriter or a director?
I feel like aren't you quite good at writing funny stuff? Is that true? Have I made that up?
I mean, I'm a journalist, so you'd think I'd be okay at writing.
Oh no, you're probably not good at writing.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. Let's say you're the writer, I'm the director, Will starring. What sort of film are we making?
I think it would have to be a
Rom-com.
hip hop Uno zombie heist film.
It's got
Yeah.
to be.
Realistically involving someone like Lil Yachty.
It's.
Will, would you be on board?
I mean, how would you cast me? Because we've got limited options. I think.
Well, we'd braid your hair
Yeah.
first.
This is a bit. I'm not trying to be rude, but I feel like at the moment you're in a bit of a kind of castaway look.
Very-
Like
I've not. Do you know what?
Jesus.
Actually, I've not had since it's March the 19th. As of 2 days ago, I've not had a haircut for a whole year.
that's actually your hair looks shorter than I would have thought for
Yeah.
a year's growth.
That's
it was
great,
almost
mate.
a buzz cut, to be fair, when I had it cut in Liverpool because it was appalling. It was a shocking haircut.
But no, I could see you kind of waking up on a beach and trying to kind of fend for yourself on an island, making friends with a volleyball.
I just don't think it could be too serious because we all have seen how I respond under pressure, and it's not great. So I feel like it needs to be a bit funny, bit of a comedy.
I mean, we'd be writing like Rory would write the script for you, so you just have to read it. You don't even have to respond
I
under
know.
pressure. We're not putting you on, who dares wins.
Who wants to be a millionaire?
So we're doing a hip hop heist.
Well, no,
Uno.
Harry, what's your vision as the director? I'll gladly kind of be flexible.
Oh god, I think of something inspiring.
Let's go. So would it be action, sci-fi, romance, comedy?
Do you know what? I actually think it would be a romance. I think it'd be about
Okay.
Will moving to London in his rite of passage adolescence, going to start his new job, and let's say Will works in the Shard. He's a tour guide on the Shard, and he looks through.
That's the big job he moved to London for.
And he part times, and he looks through like the viewing platform binoculars. I mean, I don't think there are any on the Shard, but let's say. for the sake
Does
of
he
this
see
argument-
someone get murdered?
That's
Oh.
taken a turn.
Oh, maybe he sees someone die in the Gherkin. He sees someone get killed on the top floor of the Gherkin, but only Will's seen it. I don't really know where it goes from there.
Well, he has to fall in love with someone.
Will's got to get to the Gherkin before the killer gets out the building.
But it's a romance. What's the romance?
The Gherkin. Well, you ruined it. Well, you said he saw someone die, and I was
No,
like, oh, all right.
I
fucking
could-
hell, it doesn't I was gonna say he looks through the binoculars, and he sees someone on the gherkin doing the exact same thing. It's not fleshed out. I'll be honest. I imagine there's more to it. I could fall in love with the killer.
Oh, what the fuck? The killer kills someone, looks out through the binoculars in the gherkin, and makes eye contact through the binoculars with Will's binoculars.
So it's like the killer's hunting Will, as well as...
And Will's hunting...
The killer?
The killer. We'll work on it, and we'll get back to it in a future episode, I think. We'll write up a quick script for Will.
Yeah, I've not got a name or anything, but, you know, there's a start point.
Film of the week.
So this week we watched I Care a Lot, a 2020 American comedy thriller directed by Jay Blakeson, starring Rosamund Pike. Let's kick off, and what did you guys make of it? We'll start with you, Harry.
Yeah, I cared a bit. I actually thought it was alright, you know? Like, it wasn't awful, it wasn't great. Like, I don't hate it. And a lot of people online just were like, oh, this is shite. You know, it's not going to change my... change my brain. It's not gonna be a film I remember, but like, you know, fun. Yeah, decent.
Nice. Will, let's get your take.
Harry, I was banking on you not liking this film for a bit of contrast, but it's okay because I actually also thought it was all right. Like, when I watched it, I can't say that I ever lost interest or like didn't want to carry on. I think similar to you, Harry, like a lot of the reviews online were like, after half an hour, I just like was so frustrated with this film that I just wanted to turn it off. I never felt like that at all, and if anything, like it kept engaging me. Like throughout, there was always like something just about to happen, and then
ultimately, it's a light-hearted film. You've got to accept has been made with some artistic liberties. That is literally what it is.
100%.
If you can't watch it like that, you might as well turn it off. Like, if the main premise annoys you, just turn it off, because you're just not going to watch a film you care about.
So I think I'll kind of play devil's advocate. I'll add that contrast for this, since you guys are both, you know, respectful of the film. I think I did actually enjoy it when I was watching it, but as you've said, Harry, it started off, we saw Peter Dinklage's character, and immediately I was watching with my girlfriend, and she said that, like, he's such a villain. Like, surely this is way too over the top. Like, the way he's presented in it was just very, very over the top. And I was kind of like, that's okay, but that's going to have to be the theme of the film. That's going to have to kind of be an ongoing, everything's going to have to be to that level of over the top. And it did. So I think once you accept it like that, it's quite a good and enjoyable film. I was critical kind of all the way through, probably overly. I think it was really enjoyable and a fun watch. Got a little bit kind of confused, I think, towards the end. There are a few too many things going on for me. But some of the acting performances I really liked.
Yeah. I mean, the only bits I wasn't mad on were it sort of turns a bit into an action film towards the end. And whereas I was kind of more enjoying, like, almost like the legal battle. I know that sounds a bit weird, but like I quite liked seeing them do that. But I suppose there's only so far you can bend that artistically before it's just like, well, that's just complete bollocks. I can't even begin to believe that as a premise. And the only other bit I really didn't like was I didn't believe Rosamund Pike's relationship with her girlfriend. Just wasn't that convincing. Otherwise, I was, you know, I wasn't offended by anything, and I've been offended by lots of things.
Well, yeah.
So I think my problem in that sense was that I really liked the kind of legal side of it and the kind of reality of social care for old people and how it was like so kind of, the system was so broken and they were taking advantage of that. But then I think, like you said, the second half of the film, you've got these kind of con men who have found this really smart way of making money, and then all of a sudden they're turned into action heroes who are like doing heists and stealing stuff and infiltrating like buildings, and it's like these don't really seem like the same characters. I feel like the kind of person who's going to be a con man coming up with this idea is probably going to be like a nerdy, sat in an office somewhere, kind of raking in money.
Women.
Con people, yeah. But
sexism all the way through. Not on my podcast.
I apologise.
Sorry, Rosamund Pike.
I am sorry, Rosamund Pike, although my girlfriend was crushing very hard on Rosamund Pike, and I took that quite quite hard.
Well, the film's
So-
aesthetic is really good.
I mean,
think
it got
all
hard.
looks sick.
I think it got towards the end, and my girlfriend was like, "Oh, I just want to kiss Rosamund Pike right now," and I was like, "We can't be having
The
that." I hate
costumes
this
were
film.
really good. Like they made the characters look very good.
Doesn't care.
Well, we talk about Will in our last podcast. I think you somehow mentioned, how many boobs are there in this film? And I thought you said boots, so I started talking about costume design. What was it about I Care a Lot's costume design that you really liked?
I think like the costumes, particularly for Rosalind's character, were like really good. They made her seem like she was a very powerful and quite wealthy individual, and someone you didn't really want to mess with. That's what was impressive more than anything. I mean, to be honest, like, the other costumes were a bit meh, but just for her character in particular.
Something I really liked was there's this one character who's kind of like the right hand man or like henchman of Peter Dinklage's character, and he's also very over the top. But I found him really funny. Like I think he delivered his lines really well.
Yeah.
And his costume, he like gets up into a disguise to go into the old person's home. I found that so funny. And yeah, when it's kind of light-hearted, it's not really worth being overly critical because it's meant to be a bit of a laugh.
Yeah, isn't it? It's like being angry at a comedy for not being, like not a realistic or a rom-com because people wouldn't react that way. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. It's not real, is it, Geezer? This is a film.
Number one, yeah, absolutely. Having said that, there were elements and characters that were funny, but to be honest, it didn't even come to me that this was actually a comedy. Almost, it didn't really feel like it had.
So did you not feel it had like it didn't have like laughs?
No, not really. I mean, I agree with Rory. Like that character, I found like was probably the funniest of them all. But I just think I don't know. It's difficult because what this film's all about is quite like a deep and dark world it's in America. I presume it happens in other countries, but it does fit like the very corporate capitalist culture that they have in America. And then it kind of just had like funny bits filtered over the top, but the bits that were most interesting to me were like the action parts of the film or the kind of bits that added suspense, not really the comedy element for me. I don't know what you guys thought.
Yeah,
It's interesting the bit of criticism you picked up on, Harry, about how the first half an hour kind of didn't grab people. For me, it was like the last half an hour I didn't enjoy as much.
That's where I lost interest.
I feel like where it dived from action, kind of trying to get back to that original storyline and kind of what they were actually doing, it felt very rushed towards the end, and I felt like there were kind of 4 separate endings. And I really liked the last one. I found the last one really kind of nice and closed the film really nicely. But it was very satisfying. Like I really wanted that to eventually happen. But I feel like there were kind of 3 different bits where she won, she lost, she won again, and then you kind of got to the end.
Because when I read the tagline, and I'll read it out: a crooked legal guardian who drains the savings of elderly wards meets her match when a woman is more than she first appears. Suggests to me that this woman's going to be like James Bond on acid who loves doing law, all the rest. But actually it's not that, which isn't a bad thing. It means it challenged my preconception of what I was watching, but I almost would have preferred that. I think that was almost the storyline I wanted to see.
Do you know what I would have really enjoyed? I would have really enjoyed if, and this is nothing about his performance, but I don't think you needed the character of Peter Dinklage.
No.
If you've seen something like The Usual Suspects, the whole idea is you don't really know what's going on. You don't know who the bad guy is. It would have been so much better if it was like she was trying to get her con and make it work, but there were all these weird things getting in the way and she didn't know who was behind it. I feel like you just didn't need that obvious, and that's almost what turned it into an action film, because it was like, oh, here's your protagonist, here's the antagonist, here's how they kind of interact. I enjoy the kind of unique films where they take that away and you experience the struggle of the protagonist trying to figure out what's going on.
I agree, but I think that's like for me that would be taking this film a step too far away from like its lightheartedness and comedy element that I think it wanted or intended to have. One thing I picked up like criticism, like I didn't understand this at all. People were saying like I've never hated like the main character or like the character I was supposed to like more than this film, but
you're literally supposed to, like, aren't you? That's the point.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, that. I think that's a really interesting element when the character, like, you see the most, or who's the main character, is someone that you actively don't like, and you kind of looking to other characters in the film to.
How many female anti-heroes can you think of? Are there that many? I feel like it would maybe make sense that people are suddenly like struggling to kind of come to terms with like a female
Yeah.
anti-hero. I think
think
in the
that-
past, like in the past decade, you've started getting anti-heroes. People like Deadpool, Hancock was before that, and there's plenty more examples. But I think it's very much like with the Joker, where it's like, oh, I love how much of an arsehole this guy is. Like, I love that he just like doesn't care.
Yeah.
And I think when you put a woman in that role, you get a lot of people suddenly feeling threatened, being like, oh, she's not allowed to, get away with that, do this. And I think that's probably where it comes from. And I think I have to admit, at first I was a bit like that, but then it got into the film and I was like, that's her character. She's a bit of a badass. Like, I can enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if you didn't feel like you were getting the on the Rosamund Pike hype train, you do just need to go and watch Gone Girl, because I still think that's probably top 3 female performances I've ever seen. Like, she's so good in it, so good, and that would be my definition of an anti-hero, because she is amazing in that, as sort of being this person you shouldn't like, but for some reason still endears you to sort of, I don't know, want to see what she's going to do next. It's odd. But, and like, people make comparisons between this and Gone Girl, because she's actually won a Golden Globe for this, but she didn't, Rosamund Pike, didn't for Gone Girl. So some people were saying, how is that warranted? Or, oh, she's done the same performance again, she's finally got some accolades. This is a poor man's Gone Girl, essentially, the character she's playing here. She's not bad, but it's not to the heights of that film was. And maybe some people sort of expected that, watched it, and then sort of went, hold on, this isn't nearly as well contrived a story as what they'd seen whenever that was 5 or 6 years
I think
earlier.
it's far more difficult to convey a character, like you say, Harry, that you fundamentally shouldn't like, but there's elements to their personality that you do, or at least you respect. I feel like with this character, I didn't really like any part of her, to be honest. I mean, maybe I admired her ambitiousness, I guess. But apart from that, like, I hated her character. Every time I saw her, I really, really like cringed and was like, oh, don't want to see her.
Chill out, mate.
I know,
She's
but
real.
I don't know. I agree with what you say, because I feel like that's an easier character to play than what she's doing, Gone Girl.
Yeah. But, I that's the point. That was what the director went for, was to make you dislike her, and it does a good job. I think it, as I said, it looks really good. The colours are really nice. The music's actually quite good. You don't just really pay attention to it. It's sort of like a techno beat they put in the background. But it's good. Yeah, it's not a world beater film, but I still, people are being so hot. Considering people have been giving Justice League a 10, this is not a 6. That's what
It's really interesting when it comes to rating the film, because I feel like this is one of the first ones we've watched where, when it comes to rating it, you've got to think about what they set out to make and like how the film sees itself. And it honestly is pushing. I was really critical at the time. The more I've heard other people's opinions on it, sound opinions, not like people kind of tweeting random stuff, the higher it's going in my estimation. I feel like for me it's reaching the kind of mid 7s, high 7s. I don't know what you guys think.
Will, you go next.
What I'll say is, I think out of every film we've watched so far, this is the film that I didn't have a moment in where I was not interested or wasn't engaged. Like, out of every single film we've watched, this was the one that engaged me the most. And I also think this film is perfect for if you have an afternoon or an evening with your family, and you just want to watch a film with your parents and you don't want to take any risks. This is a good film to watch with your parents, because I feel like
I agree, and I think this is finish what you were saying. On that exact note, I feel like this is the kind of film that streaming services were made for. It's not the film you go to the cinema to watch, but it's the film that's what's new on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
It's I care a lot, and it's an enjoyable thing to see.
And I think there will have been some people who actually really liked it. There'll be some people who really don't. That's fine. You're not going to like every film you watch. But there will be some people who have really liked it, who maybe wouldn't have seen it if it was something that you get in a cinema, always comes in 3rd or 4th that week on the box office, and sort of just fades off. So to be honest, I wasn't annoyed I spent 2 hours watching it. There are definitely worse films being promoted out there than this.
So with that in mind, I really like the themes that it plays with. I'm quite a cynic. I hate go-getters, people that will do anything to get to the top.
Mate, what? You hate people?
I hate people that
What?
are willing to step on other people just to get to the top for their own self-interest. And I'm a cynic, so this film kind of played up to those kind of feelings in me. So I'd probably give it 7.2. I think there were some holes in it that even at the time I was kind of like, oh, I think it would.
You said it was the one you enjoyed the most of the ones we've
I
seen.
think-
Would you literally put it above all the other films we've seen?
Really?
I'm saying, would you?
No, I wouldn't. I think there's a difference between it being like engaging. I think engaging is the key word. Like it.
I agree.
The ending, yeah, it was rushed, but at the same time, like something that I was sure that was just about to happen then didn't happen, and then it like completely took a different direction. The next 10 minutes, we had like another one of those scenarios. So yeah, it was engaging, but yeah, no, I'll stick with 7.4. It's not like that isn't the best rating I've given, and it's not above other things, but yeah, no, I think it's a film you should watch. Like I genuinely think it's a film you should watch if you've just got a free 2 hours, and you want to watch something a bit different from what we've talked about before.
All right, Rory, what was your actual end rating?
I'll stick with, you said 7.4, right, Will? I'll go with 7.5.
Oh,
In fact,
he's
I
done you.
I quite like that, because I think if you can get a good film in terms of being engaging, light-hearted, not taking itself too seriously, I kind of think 7.5 is the highest you can get. Like, I'm not sure you can do much better than that without being a kind of serious, big film. So for what it is and what it tried to do, I think it did that really well. So I liked I Care a lot, and yeah, 7.5.
Do you not even think like the top tier of comedy film? I don't know what that'd be. Couldn't breach like a 7.5 for you.
But then, so I think that's again the problem. Will didn't even think of it as a comedy, and for me, bringing in that action kind of brought it down again, because it was like, what exactly are you at this point? And once I kind of decided, especially with that ending, I decided it wasn't a more serious action film, or a comedy film. Like, it was somewhere in between, which caps it at 7.5 for me.
Fair. It's a 6.6.
Okay.
Is that all you're gonna say?
It's still above average.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I mean, I wouldn't ever watch it again, which sounds like a real indictment of what it is. But it's just because it's it's one of those one and done jobs. It's all right, but I'm not gonna lose sleep trying to promote it to other people or wishing I got those 2 hours back. But I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was fun.
I feel like it's not the kind of thing I'd watch again, but it's the kind of thing I'd probably recommend someone else watch if they've got a spare kind of afternoon.
Yeah, there's better out there, but if you were lost and you just said, I've got this now, yeah, I wouldn't say you're making a wrong decision saying you like it. Program Prison.
Harry's Court of Crimes Against Film of TV.
Cinema Crime. The Cinema Cell.
Cinemurgatory.
Film Faux Pas. IMDb Beef.
Deal or No Deal.
Amazon Supreme Court. Assault and Battery. Death by shooting. No.
On the Chopping Block.
Solitary Confinement. Cinema the cinema.
Cinema. Right, so we now move on to our newest segment entitled The Cinema, where we head to film and TV hell and go over to Harry, who will take us through this week's biggest sins in the film and TV industry. Over to you, Harry.
Marvel, you've gone too far. I am sick of this relentless stream of rubbish that you put out. Disney have hit the shill button, and all the Marvel shills have come running, and their latest shill pill they're having to swallow is WandaVision. Now, I've read reviews, people saying this is the best thing since sliced bread. WandaVision is a crock of shit, and I'm going to tell you why. This is the most expensive TV show ever made. I have to qualify by saying that. So by logic, I am saying that this should be, production-wise, top tier. Now, let's assume they're paying the main actors quite a lot of money, because they probably are. Even then, this show looks budget. The CGI looks like it's from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which wasn't good when it came out and isn't good now 20 years on. The acting's pretty shit. I feel sorry for Paul Bettany. I like you, Paul Bettany. But the rest of the cast suck. I mean, the woman from Thor, you are one of the worst actresses I've ever seen. Oh, God. I'm struggling to compose my thoughts. This show sucks. The first 2 episodes are rubbish. Like, I'm talking like an hour of absolutely nothing. Like, 50s comedy for about 2 minutes of plotline. You then finally get the plot going somewhere. And it's shit. They promise something, and I'm like, oh, I'm excited for this. And then they just cop it all out with some weak storyline because they've got to just appease the Marvel fan train so they can set up the next phase of the Avengers or whatever. I don't even know where they're going with this anymore. Like, we've killed Thanos. Leave me alone for a second. But you can't not watch, because if you don't watch, you don't know what the hell's going on. When the next big billion-dollar grossing film comes out and you're like, oh, great, well, I didn't watch WandaVision that one time, so I've got no fucking clue what I'm watching anymore, because I didn't know that Vision kissed his sister in a ruined town in a dream in Sokovia in the show. I've lost my head slightly. This show is honestly the same quality as like the predecessors. I'm talking like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. awful. It looks crap. The story's ailing. It's the same issue I've got with The Mandalorian. Like, you can like Marvel, that's fine by me. You can like Marvel, you can like Star Wars, you can like any of these remakes. But if they're fundamentally not good, do not go on the internet and tell me it's amazing because you quite like Elizabeth Olsen's outfit. That does not make a good show. People would not be watching this if it wasn't a Marvel TV show. I'm telling you, if this was a standalone and Marvel wasn't famous, no one would be watching this. Oh god, I'm getting a migraine just thinking about how bad this show is. And then we've got to go and watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to come out next week. You're going to get Loki in a month after that. Leave me alone, Marvel. I don't want to watch this. I'm putting you in the cinema. My sentence for this show: Paul Bettany, you can go on house arrest. You were fine. There's no one else good in it, so everyone else is receiving a sentence. Disney, you can actually get life in prison because I'm bored of Disney. Soul wasn't that good. This is worse. I don't want to watch anything you have to produce at the moment. It's all crap. Elizabeth Olsen, you can go and do community service because I feel like you've signed on to a contract, so that's a bit harsh to put you anymore. 40 hours. The rest of you, a minimum 50 years in prison. For the amount of years that you went through in that show that were just utterly pointless. That's what I think of WandaVision.
Right, Harry has had his say on WandaVision, and that brings us to the end of episode 5 of the Save the Stub podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Join us next week, and we will be talking about Man on Fire with Denzel Washington. Thank you, Will, for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed it.
It's been great.
And thank you, Harry, as ever.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
We will see you in the next one.
Bye.
You had to have the last laugh, didn't you?
Save the star.